There are 7 keys that you must use if you want to unlock your ability to make her fall in love with you over and over again. And once simply understood, these keys will give you the ability to understand her better than she does herself. Imagine a moment of conflict where you give her the language that she doesn't have. And this allows her to just have those emotional storms immediately evaporate, getting her to completely let go of the past. I know, I promise. And how to use this ability to love her in a way that overcomes any obstacle or resistance that she gives you. However, by choosing to click away and not master these skills, your brain will slowly begin to find more reasons it is solely her fault for where things are at. This will slowly still your soul. You will feel the pain of failure, but lie to yourself about why it happened. The man that takes this path ends up bitter and full of resentment, and I don't want you to go there. So my name is Josh Hudson, and I've taught these 7 skills to thousands of our clients in our Marriage Reset program. So let's dive in. Here's what you can expect from each concept in this video. We'll break it down into 4 clear parts. What it is, an understanding of the idea itself, why it's important, the impact it has on your relationship. Number 3, I'm going to give you either examples or stories to highlight this concept. And then finally, the 4th thing is how to apply it immediately with practical steps, how to navigate these difficulties to create growth in your marriage. Let's build in with creating consistent congruence. Okay, so congruence is an extremely important topic. Once you get it down, she just sees you as a consistent man, right? You are who we say you are. She sees you as an authentic man. And that authenticity produces a lot of safety and just high value in her eyes. Because as you can see from yourself, if you were to speak to a lot of men and look at men you admire, they are authentic, they are consistent, and they have congruence. So I've broken down, and I've never seen anyone talk about this in this level, but I've broken down 2 types of congruence. Now there is macro congruence. Macro congruence is the high level concept of the man that you say that you are, what you espouse in your values, and then how you act. So if you have congruency, there's a straight line. There's consistency, right? So I'm gonna use simple examples, all right? So if you say you're an honest man, right? You tell this to your wife, you preach it a lot, you tell others they should be honest, you don't like when people are dishonest to you, et cetera, then your actions should match that. But let's say, as an example, you say you're an honest man and your wife knows the way you see yourself, yet you are not transparent with her. And let's say she's made that a big issue. The difference between honesty and transparency is that honesty, you don't lie to her essentially, but you omit things. That's not being transparent. And to her and most people, being honest is also being transparent. And so if she brings up an issue and says, you're not honest because you didn't tell me this thing, but you're like, I didn't tell you, but I wasn't lying to you about it. I just didn't think you wanted to know. Okay. To her, she is challenging the way that you say you are versus what you are showing. Because if you were honest with yourself, we'll talk about like complete congruence on the macro. You say you're honest, but you're not honest with yourself. You weren't transparent. Most times when I talk to guys, they're not transparent because they're afraid if they tell wife certain details about things, she'll get upset, and then they have to enter that conversation, deal with her emotions, right? So that's on the macro level. So understanding what your values are and then matching them with the actions you take. And look at every criticism she had towards you around this, and you can find the incongruency, and you want to correct that. Let's look at the micro level. So the micro level has to do with your thoughts, emotions, and actions all aligning with each other. Okay, so for micro congruency, this is your daily thoughts, emotions, and actions, right? Macro is more about who you are. It's more general, where this is like every day, what you're saying to her, how you're acting, how you're feeling. Is there a straight line there? So someone who has good congruence, right? Let's say, and by the way, let me just actually correct this real quick. It's incorrect. The book called Happiness Hypothesis actually states that emotions come first in our brain, then thoughts, then actions. So a man who has microcongruence, let's say his wife starts going out late, right? And she's wearing different clothing and she's hanging out with friends. He doesn't like it, but he doesn't want to be controlling. So his emotions are fear, jealousy, insecurity, okay? We'll just do fear, it's a base emotion. But then, and his thoughts are they're kind of jumbled, right? Because he's not certain of what he wants or who he is. Okay, because there's also some macro congruency there. Let's say the man says like he's in his thoughts, like if he's to be honest with himself, which a lot of guys, they don't even take the time to analyze their thoughts, to write them on journals, to see what they're actually thinking. That's why there's heavy incongruence, because they're not even analyzing what's going on. Regardless, let's say that he knows his thought is, I'm worried she's gonna find someone else. You know, he talks with one of our team members or coaches and he's like, I think my wife is trying to find someone. She's trying to go out and date, or she's trying to, I don't know, right? But when his wife goes out one night and she tells him, and he says, okay, that's fine, she can sense the incongruency. She knows he's not okay with it, and she'll lose respect, right? There's a disconnect. Where the authentic emotion would be to exert and express his honest emotions, how he feels and what he wants, okay? And you can do so in a way that's not controlling. I'm gonna do this off the cusp, but it looks a little bit like this. Hey, can I talk to you before you go out? I feel concerned that you're going out. I feel like you're looking for something outside of this relationship, and it may not be true, but I wanted to express that's how I honestly feel about this. And yeah, I wanted to have a conversation around it. And the reason why that's high value is because you are being congruent. A lot of people have it twisted or messed up that if you express vulnerability or you express your honest emotions, that you're seen as low value. In that statement, I'm not saying she can't go out. I'm not saying you can't go do this. I'm saying this is how I feel about it. And if you saw yourself as a valuable person, you would value your own emotions. And people in your life should respect how you feel. You see what I mean? Where the incongruent, dishonest man keeps it in and he's afraid to push her further away. And she knows that. She loses respect, therefore pushing you further away because you don't respect yourself. And on a subtle level, there is psycho-incongruence. So I don't have to draw this one out for you. It essentially is that you say one thing, but your nonverbals express another. I can't tell you how many times I work with clients. I'm going to refer to past clients, not clients in this program, but people where it's like they bring about their trauma as an example. The phrase is called intellectualizing, okay? Where they're sharing me their first trauma ever about how their father abused them or they were cheated on or whatever it is. And there's just this flat affect, which means they're like, yeah, my father used to hit me. You know, I mean, it really sucked. Like, it was really painful. And I honestly, it was devastating to me. And so it's like, if it's devastating to you, you don't seem devastated. You see, so you have to also match. And this is also a superpower when you look at other people, by the way, when you can tell that they're saying one thing and how they feel, but they're showing another, they're masking their emotions, right? And a high value apex man finds congruency in the way he expresses himself non-verbally and also with his content of the way he's saying. So there is a matching or a consistency or congruence between what he says and how he's affected or his emotions. It's similar to the micro-congruency, but you can see it from a different perspective from the non-verbals. The next concept is to never stop gaming your wife. This is the act of consistently pursuing her and maintaining romantic energy, that masculine feminine polarity through giving her desire because she wants to feel desired. If you're not, this leads to stagnation and complacency, as many men know, especially Frank. They went from love and passion to feeling like roommates to near divorce. Now they're on the road to recovery. He'd be lying if he said that he wasn't afraid things were irreparable. But there was a new spark inside of him, a realization that if he wanted to win his wife back fully, he had to pursue her with the same passion he once had. Or as Tony Robbins says, if you act like it's the first day you fell in love, it'll never be the last. Now, reflecting on the early days of the relationship, he remembered how he'd make everything fun, how his romantic energy fueled their connection, constantly flirting with her, teasing her, touching her, random spontaneous dates. That was the energy he had to tap into again, despite how she felt and what she was saying. It's providing her value. But what was even tougher was that it had to come from a place of non-neediness. He couldn't let his wife's potential hesitation or mixed signals get in the way of his leading. Frank set out to make every week special. It didn't have to be elaborate. What mattered was the intention. For example, one week he surprised her with a cozy backyard picnic under the stars. The next, he set up an impromptu cooking class in their kitchen. It was complete with recipes and music. We call these potency actions in our program, by the way. We give a list of lots that you can use. But for Frank, he knew his wife was exhausted after work around this time. So with report cards due and parent-teacher interviews, so he stepped up and took over things around the house, doing more chores than usual. He came home tired, but he's like, I'm gonna fold the mountains of laundry that I would normally leave for her, okay? He said, I'm taking the kids to bed. You go relax, go chill out. Without saying a word, he'd even make an effort to caress her shoulders and massage her feet while watching TV. Most men will say, well, what is she gonna give me in return? But acts like this, giving her love, doing these things for her, romanticizing her, you do it because you want to, because you enjoy making her happy. Instead of worrying about me, what can I get in return? Because you're trying to fill this empty hole. You see that this is where it comes from. But with each effort he had, he saw a glimmer and an old spark returning into her eyes. And for the first time in a long time, they started laughing, connecting. And she could feel his genuine love, his giving to her without expecting anything in return, which is the most important part. He was no longer taking her for granted. He was showing up for her fully. And that made all the difference. To overcome this, I don't need to tell you how to date your wife again, right? Just set up systems and promises, maybe in your phone, that you're gonna do one compliment daily, okay? Set it in your phone, compliment my wife, send her some gratitude, right? Or plan these dates, whether they're big trips or just spontaneous lunch across the day. Like the most popular Instagram reel I have on my Instagram page, if you don't follow it, has like over 6 million views. It talks about men doing small things for their wife. And a lot of women are the ones who watch it and like it and comment on it because those little daily showing that you care it speaks to the larger volume of how much you actually do. The third concept is that your wife is a jealous gardener. Now, what I mean by this is that she has an intuitive understanding. She can feel, she can sense, and it is a sixth sense of where your energy is going into her or other places. She can just sense it. So if I were to ask you a bunch of questions, can you have women as friends? Is it okay to watch porn? Can you, by yourself, walking around in the middle of the day, stare at other women that are attractive, maybe even fantasize about them, but you're not doing anything? Now, for the longest time, you'll have a lot of men out there say that those things are all okay, and they can have their rationalizations as to why that is. But the more I learn, the more I speak to women, the more I look for my own mistakes and the guys and thousands of men of our program, I see that that is actually the beginning of the cracks in the foundation. And that old adage of like, the grass is always greener, it is so true. You know, I used to kind of joke at that, but it is true. She can tell if you're watering, and that water, she can tell you're watering other places, and that water is your energy, is your attention, is your thoughts. She can sense it. It is crazy. I personally struggle with this in many of my relationships, but I'll share with you a client story instead, because I was sharing this in our group call that I take on Wednesdays with the guys in the program. And one of the guys related. He said, you know, Josh, just recently, my wife, a couple weeks ago, she found these old photos of my high school girlfriend and letters from her saved up in the attic. And I didn't remember they were there, he said, and I believe him. But when I challenged him, I said, well, I totally get where you're coming from. I really do. For me, it was photos on Google Drive, just old photos. I didn't know they were there either. But to her, it seems like you're still keeping that there as a memory. And if she means everything to you, now some women, they can be okay with that stuff of having old, maybe they have old letters from an ex and it means nothing. It's just memories. But the thing is, if she doesn't like it and you want her in your life, you do something about it. She's not trying to control you. She has a need for security, for safety. And whether her fear is unwarranted or not, it is your job to reassure her, to make her feel safe. And throwing away some damn letters in the attic just to make your wife happy should not be a big deal. Because whether it means you're choosing her or not, in her mind it is, and that's what matters, you see? And so watching porn or looking at other women, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but that I'm not gonna take sin from a religious perspective, but that sin, it is like a little bit of a drip away, like watering these other plants, right? Not fully committing, devoting yourself to her, and she senses that. The way to overcome this, man, is to be honest with yourself is step number one. Like, why are you keeping those things? And if it is for nothing, fine. But step number two is like, why do you have so much defense to get rid of it? Right? To make her feel reassured. Do you feel like, I know for me, myself, and a lot of other guys that have their wives, it's, well, she should be okay with that. It's not a big deal. It's like, if there's no threat there, then why does she feel threatened? Again, you're not her, okay? She is more sensitive to these cracks, to needing reassurance. And so if you can give her that, that's the most important thing. That's part of protecting her, you see? So be honest, understand with empathy, and take action. Let's go to the next one. Okay, the fourth key is to choose validation over defensiveness. There is a clear difference between the men that are able to resolve conflict with their wife and bringing her closer together and use conflict as a tool to bring her closer together versus the guys who essentially just make it worse. And defensiveness is one of the key behaviors that leads to more of a disconnect. It's one of the four horsemen of the conversation apocalypse in Dr. Gottman's work. But let's just look at these two different guys, and I want to give you an example, okay? So I'm not going to go over every single one, but as you can see here on the chart, a man who is self-actualized or an apex male, their mindset is taking full responsibility for their actions and growth, where the victim blames external factors on their partner for issues. When it comes to emotional regulation, the apex man handles their emotions with maturity and stays grounded, where the victim reacts impulsively or with emotional outbursts. The apex man also sets healthy boundaries with respect, where the victim has weak or rigid boundaries, so rigid that they're controlling or he's over-accommodating. And I can go on, but let's just go into an example so you can see how this looks like. Now, I got this example from a guy the other day in our program. All right, so let's take a look at the example here. So the situation is the wife comes to you upset because you promised to drop off the kids at a certain time. But then to you, something came up, and whether it was work or some emergency in your mind, right? In your mind, it was an emergency. But regardless, when you said, hey, I'm going to drop off the kids like an hour later, and then she gets all pissed off, and you try to compromise for 30 minutes, but she's still mad. She made something like, what is it about talking that causes the, okay, anyways, even though you may have a reason for why you can't honor your word, she's still going to say something like, you never listen and you aren't a man of your word. She's going to challenge you. She's going to feel the disrespect. She's going to feel her emotions of being upset, not getting her needs met. She's going to express that as she should. So there's two types of victim mistakes that gets made with defensiveness. The main way that someone in a victim mindset oftentimes becomes defensive is they focus on context with counter examples. So the way this looks, if you take the statement, you never listen, they'll say, never. Last week I did this thing, and you're going to make your case almost like you're defending yourself in a court case, right? And that creates this adversarial relationship, causes her to be pissed off, and everything falls apart. This is what the apex man does. He validates plus expresses. So validation plus expression. Validation alone, it can create more of a rapport, but at the end of the day, if you do it too much without expressing what you want, she doesn't have respect for you. So it's a combination of both. So what it looks like is like this. Man, you feel angry because I didn't listen to you, right? Now, when you're saying that, you're not agreeing with her. You're just saying, this is the way you feel. This is the way you see the world. There's that validation. So you're showing your understanding for why she feels the way she does. And that is important. Where a lot of guys make the mistake is that when they validate, they do stuff from a place of like, okay, just, I'm going to say this word because Josh said on a YouTube video that, no, don't feel that way anymore. She feels that incongruency. You want to go back to congruency. So you tie these things together. She feels the incongruency and she's saying, where did you get that? A freaking book or a therapist? Because you're not being genuine. Validation has to come from a genuine place, okay? Now the expression is, I would love to resolve this with you, but I would like us both to become first. Notice how when you express your needs, you're putting it in an us framework, a we framework, instead of saying what I need, right? When you have that us framework, it's more collaborative and she's more likely to say, okay, he's thinking about us instead of himself. All right, so your wife is a transparent berry picker. I'm not calling her bad names, I swear. Check out this clip and we'll expand on it.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't!
Okay, we've all been there. She comes home and she just starts going off on random details and you're sitting there like, what's the point? Where's the nail? Where's the problem? I need to solve it. Now, this idea comes from Alison Armstrong's work. I'd check her out if I was you. It's really good stuff on female psychology. So the idea here is that from an evolutionary perspective, we are different men and women. And as your wife is evolving, you know, us men, we went out to hunt. We went out to hunt where it's like, where is the kill, right? Or where's threats? And we had a goal, we had a task, and we knew how to get it done. And it was linear thinking, okay, straight line. Whereas a woman, she's going to go out to pick the berries and she's going to go talk to her friends about, you know, the husbands and all this stuff. And she's going to notice every little detail. Oh, those are poisonous. Oh, look what happened over here. And she's doing that because she's surveying the landscape. Women have a lot more attention to detail because of this idea that they were trained through just periods of time. Trained sounds like the wrong word, but through a period of time, they taught themselves, or they evolved in a way to notice details. And so the idea is that they would come back from their berry picking experience, right? And then they would tell their husbands of all the things that happened. Oh, there's this new animal we saw, or there's this, or we found this predator here, or there's a poisonous mushroom, or whatever the case. So she's essentially doing the same thing as Alison Armstrong says. And your role as the man is to not look for the problem. Don't pull out the nail. You simply understand and validate. She's doing so to connect with you. That is the purpose of doing this. So the best way to learn this skill is to just understand it, just to know it, that when she's talking a lot of times about drama or details of her life, or whatever it is, how her day was at work, you don't have to solve her problem. Just, again, give her that understanding. Okay. The sixth concept is that it's not her, it's you. The amplified reflection. Look, there's a concept here that we have at Marriage Reset, which is that your wife is an amplified mirror. Now, we talk about shadow work a lot too on this channel. And the amplified mirror idea is that whatever inherent qualities you have about yourself that you don't like about yourself, your wife will reflect back to you tenfold. Because the masculine leads in the relationship, and she's just following your lead. So if she's feeling unsafe, if she's pulling back, it's because you did something first to make her feel that way. Okay. And I know this is hard for a lot of men to really grasp. And even a part of me wants to like, oh, but like she has some autonomy, right? Yes and no. In the relationship context, how she feels towards you, you are the guiding principle, okay? You are the one that has led her in this relationship through the good and the bad. And you can see how when you change your behaviors, it directly affects the way she feels. You should have a stronger frame in your masculine. Okay, so you should be having influence over her. And if you aren't having influence and persuading her, it's because you are not in your masculine core frame. So let me expand on this point by telling you a story. Kevin had always thought his wife, Sarah, was the one with the emotional walls up. You know, she rarely shared how she was feeling. She was that classic dismissive avoidance. I hate that term, but regardless, that's how he viewed her. He convinced himself that her distance was just a part of her personality, something she picked up from her mother. But it did eat at him. He wanted more openness from her, a deeper connection. But instead of approaching it gently, Kevin's frustration often, it just spilled out as complaints towards Sarah. Why don't you ever open up to me? He would say with like a hint of resentment in his voice. These confrontations only created more friction between them, and her responses grew just colder. It left Kevin more frustrated. When he started one-on-one coaching to work on his marriage, his coach pointed out a pattern that he'd seen in himself. He was holding back too, avoiding conflict and bottling up his own feelings to keep the peace. The realization was uncomfortable, but eye-opening. For the first time, Kevin saw that his guardedness might be contributing to hers. That very night, Kevin decided to break his old pattern. He approached Sarah, not with complaints, but with just complete honesty, like all of it, just like vomited it out, this honesty, okay, all over her. He admitted to her he's been holding back all these emotions, hiding his frustrations, and he hadn't created the safe place for either of them just to be real. As he spoke, Sarah listened, and for the first time, he noticed her softening. And in that moment, he realized something profound. Sarah was actually holding back because he was first. As Kevin began to show up more openly, sharing his feelings without any expectations in return, he saw her start to do the same. Her walls began to lower, mirroring the openness that he was finally showing. It was then he truly understood the change had to start with him. The final key is to stop living in the echo chamber. Look, there's this idea that your ego, right, who you are, how you see the world, your self-perception is where it got you to where you are now. All your internal belief systems, all that internal code, produce the life you currently have, positive and negative. Okay, there's a lot of positive in your life, I'm sure, but there are some old patterns and habits and software that it needs to be updated, okay, if you want a different result. And the thing is that you can't do surgery on yourself, so to speak. And this is why having other experts and other men going through the same problem as you, to be able to see within an instant, so to say, look, like, dude, you just said this about yourself. I can't tell you how many times I'm on a group call and I'll hear a guy say something like, oh, man, I'm just no good. And he doesn't even recognize he says it. I had to call him out like, dude, where's that coming from? Why are you saying you're no good? Or that you are a nice guy. Like, no, you're not a nice guy. You have nice guy tendencies. And I call these guys out on these things because your language influences that's your code expressing itself, just the self-dialogue by itself. And this is why getting on a call with our team is so powerful, because on that call alone, that 1 free hour call, we can see exactly where the problem is, okay? So if you want to set up a call with our team to get that direct feedback and how to improve and for us to catch that old software, click down below, but make sure, look, it's not free advice though, okay? It's for you if you want to take action and commit to something, okay? But look, it doesn't even have to be through us. It really doesn't. It doesn't have to, like if you have, I mean, at the very least friends are probably gonna give you bad advice at times. They'll tell you just to leave her, right? If you've talked to some guys who've been through divorce that haven't worked on themselves. So make sure the friends are ones who are challenging you, or a therapist in the least. Obviously I'm biased towards our program, but you need someone to challenge. So present that to others. I know it's like you don't want to share. I know there's a lot of stigma around going through divorce or going through a difficult marriage, but what's the alternative? You're going to sit there and you're just going to try to figure it out on your own and suffer in silence. It's not worth it, okay? I highly recommend you watch this video right here if you want to learn how to assert your boundaries more effectively. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.